Hello, this is David, and today we're going to be talking about data types. Real quick, all these skills should be transferable, but my terminology is going to be based around Ruby. Also, we are using online IDE called repl.it, but let's get started. So what is a data type? We can pretty much start off by analyzing this word, and it's just, we all have to some degree an understanding of what data is. It's information. And so when we add the word type to it, it means that there's different versions of data. Essentially, within software engineering, we have different structures in how we can hold data. So once again, this is going to be specific to Ruby, but this concept should be generally transferable to any other language. So within Ruby, we have a few different types of data. And so I'm going to go ahead and list these off. We have Booleans, we have symbols, integers, /numbers, floats, /numbers. We have a hash, an array. So programming within Ruby and many other languages, it's just about finding a way to manipulate these data types, essentially. They're very much the base to what we're doing. Really, programming is just all about interacting with data, and data can just come in these different forms. Each one of these is actually going to be a class within Ruby as well. This might be slightly different within another language, but it's all the same for the most part. So let's get into this. What is a Boolean? So a Boolean is a true or a false. So if I run this, we get true responded. If I do puts true, it'll return the value true, and we can do puts false, and this will return the value false. So Booleans are very helpful within conditional statements. These are statements that are if something, if this, do this, else do that. And so this isn't very correct within syntax, but essentially what we're saying here is if this argument is true, then we will commit this action. If this argument is false, then we will commit this action. That's a pretty quick representation of how a Boolean would function. So once again, a Boolean is going to be true, false, and then we can even consider nil part of the Boolean category. Nil is a representation for nothing. So nil is nothing. We just need some way to categorize that. Now let's talk symbols. So symbols within Ruby are just hard-coded values. They are very similar to a string, but when you use a symbol, it is something that you do not want to change. So let's do stays the same. So we can run that. We'll have a return value of stays the same. So like puts stays the same. And symbols are going to be often used as a key within a hash. Let's go into integers and numbers real quick. An integer or a number is quite exactly what it seems to be. These are numbers. So 4, 5, however large you want to make it, this is an integer. And that's pretty much it. The only difference between an integer and a float is that a float is a specific name given to an integer when it has decimal points. So now let's hop into what a array is. It's a type of data, but it's also a way of holding and organizing that data. An array is depicted with square brackets, like so, and within here you will hold different types of data. So we could hold a value of true, we could hold a number, we could hold a float, we could hold another array, and this would be embedded or a nested array, we could hold a hash, which we will talk about here shortly. And furthermore, we can continuously hold or nest arrays and hashes within themselves, like so. So here's a hash, and then here's going to be a hash within a hash, and then another hash within a hash. And we can put a value of true in here. Let's print this and see what our return is. So syntax error, unexpected end of input, expecting something. So let's see. So let's try to figure out what's going on here. So we have our initial array of true, then 3. Let's see what happens when we get to here. Okay, so this is returning correctly. And then let's enter a hash in here. This is also returning correctly. Let's throw an array, returning. So I think the problem is the way that I was nesting the arrays. Let's run that. That's returning correctly. Let's nest it one more time. Also returning correctly. And then let's put a value of true in here. Okay, so I'm not exactly sure what I did wrong initially, but this is a very good example of how arrays function. And so now we're going to move on to hashes. So hashes are very similar to arrays in the way that they are structured. So just how you can nest an array and data types within that, you can also nest a hash. The main difference between a hash and an array is that a hash is a key value pair. So let's write that down, key value pair for hashes. And also a hash is often referred to as a dictionary, also called a dictionary. And referring to a hash as a dictionary is a very good way to look at this conceptually, because a hash, since it is a key value pair, is very much like a dictionary. When you want to find a word in a book, or the definition of a word, you go into a dictionary, you find the word is a representation of the key, and then the definition is a representation of the value. The way a hash works is very similar to an array. And a quick example of this will be us making a quick dictionary to make a string of dog. And a dog would be the definite, or the word itself. So this would be the word you're looking up. And then for the value, we are going to say 4-leg canine. So let's run this. And so here we see dog, 4-leg canine. Let's continue this, and we can do a horse. And this is just a different way to write it with a symbol. And we will do 4-leg large can ride. And so this is going to expand our hash. What's another animal? Let's do duck. And so if I don't use a string or a symbol or any other known data type as the key, this will not work. 2-leg beak. So now when I run this, we're going to get an error. So what we would need to do is put duck within a string or make it a symbol. And so we can very much see the relationship of how a hash or a dictionary, however you'd like to refer it, is very similar to a dictionary in itself. And just like we did before, we can nest within hashes. Let's do nest, and then we'll put an array. Inside of that, we'll have a hash with the value of nested with the value of an array. Let's run this. And then in here, we can put a value of false. So this is a very quick and brief representation of how data types work within Ruby and just in general within languages and software development. Most languages, if not all languages, every language I've worked with, they also have built-in methods, and these methods will be specific to data types. We can Google Ruby methods, and let's see, Ruby docs, cool. And so right here we can just see a long list of methods and what we can do with them. An example of a built-in Ruby method would be if we had a string, or let's do an integer. This would be the easiest. X is equal to this integer. And then say we want to convert this integer to a string, we would do x.to_i. Let's print this. And what we will see is that this number will now be wrapped around quotations. Oh, 2s, toString, my mistake. And now this is wrapped around quotations. If we do 2s.to_i, it will go back to being an integer. These methods or functions are very specific to the data type. Let's do x is equal to an empty array. And then let's do x.toInteger. So this is going to try to convert an array to an integer. It won't be able to make this run. If we convert it to a string, it can do that because it's simply going to take the symbols and wrap them around the string. This is a very quick and hopefully helpful tutorial of how data types work within software development and computer languages. Also, remember to read the description or the notes below. They typically will have any additional information that might be needed, and feel free to leave recommendations or feedback down below so I can improve either this content or future content moving forward.